This is really a delightful commentary that I'm about to make because I couldn't resist it. I mean, I have PR 3 days in a row. I don't mean for myself, but as you folks probably already know, if you didn't scream and threaten and show anger, Fauci did suggest very strongly that we can't make a decision as to whether we should gather at Christmas time. Can't make a decision as yet. It may be too soon. Talk about one of the biggest faux pas you could make in PR to attack Christmas in that way. They didn't even do that during the Second World War. And then we're going to follow. Oh, then the second day, and I'm told that Fauci's on the air almost every hour of every day, so I didn't believe it at first. But the day after that announcement, he came forth and said, no, it was a mistake. He was misunderstood. Well, do yourself a favor. See if you can play back his first day saying, no, we didn't misunderstand him at all. Now, the third day is, can you believe this is the third day? There is a documentary that's going to be released about Fauci. I'm wondering tomorrow, for the fourth day, is Fauci going to announce he's a member of the Communist Party or the Socialist Party or what have you? You know, I don't doubt that this man has PR going endlessly. The sad thing about it is that we are tending to sequester ourselves and narrow our lives down to smaller and smaller groups, which of course is one of the key formulas of the communist movement. That was done in China when they first moved in, and it was done in Russia. It was done. It's a pattern. Of course, you got to avoid other things. I'm sure we've been advised by now, because the contagiousness of this pandemic, that we don't kiss. There's no sexual affection, and again, maybe it is too early to decide whether we should get together on New Year's Eve. Now, I am not a supporter. I despise the communist and socialist parties. I think it's one of the greatest evils, but they are rapidly, as I'm sure you realize, taking control over much of the United States. The final aim is amongst the children, and that, if you study the history of communism, was one of the key aims and accomplishments that they made, not only in Russia, but in South American cities as well. The American pandemic could go on for decades. And I believe there's going to be there's going to be an attempt to let it continue, because an awful lot of money is being made off of the pandemic. And incidentally, it is very, very similar. The coverage of it is very similar to the flu, except that we didn't stop children from going to school, one of the biggest mistakes we've ever made in history. And we did not sequester and limit people gathering and so forth, as they would do if they were going to movie theaters or private parties, or let's say Thanksgiving or Halloween. That was certainly not the pattern that was taken into consideration. But it's been more successfully made to work, and it's being followed very, very deliberately, and increasing the limitation of people gathering together, which is a sad, sad commentary on what makes the United States very, very special. I thought, and I do feel and predict, that Fauci lost a great deal of trust amongst the people of the United States when he made the faux pas about Christmas. You just don't go that far. There's a breakdown of friends and family. People are not to invite large groups to their homes as much anymore. Kissing and hugging them is to be discouraged at times, and you certainly don't hug Santa Claus. That's a thing of the past. Dinner, he suggested that in the wintertime, if we're having large groups, we should have dinner outdoors. I'm not a great fan of eating in the snow, but again, who knows? It may be something to learn to get used to. Now, the outlawing come automatically. We haven't outlawed sports, thank God. And I didn't mean to jump when I said sports, because thank goodness, look at baseball making a tremendous comeback. But you haven't seen the same thing taking place, folks, in any way, shape, or form with boxing or wrestling. I guess it would be just too easy to suggest don't fool around and make contact. So the cutting down of gatherings in schools and churches, we've lost thousands of churchgoers in the past few months. That is in the news very, very often. And it's a tragedy that's taken place. Theaters, of course, plays are not opening as rapidly as they once were, or being attended as greatly. The breakdown of society is the formula of controlling to small groups and gatherings, again, whether it's Halloween, Thanksgiving, or yes, even Christmas. We're relying, as was to be expected, and as a gift to the groups that want to break down American society, we're relying more and more on cell phones, to the point that there are actually people who spend more than 3 hours a day on a cell phone. And psychologists have warned that when we and realize that there are kids spending 8 hours a day, this is a very serious jeopardy to our integration and response with each other. If you heard a little meowing, that is Pumpkin, one of my 4 cats, and he wanted to agree with me. I love animals, and one thing about animals, they don't betray people. I'm not accusing Fauci of anything. I just think that this is a wonderful time to take advantage of his incredible sideshow histrionics and his PR. Could he be a communist? Could he be a socialist sympathizer? Or could he simply be a leader, and a successful leader? To this day, and I've said it before, one of the greatest, most powerful weapons in modern history has been the pandemic, and it truly has been a weapon. To be continued, folks.